Hey, welcome back to the Rad Dad podcast, and happy belated Mother's Day to all the moms out there. It was just past Sunday. Got my son to do some special stuff for his mother, and it was great just teaching my son how to respect a woman, how to treat her properly on a nice day. So we got some of her favorite stuff for her. But today I want to welcome our new guest, Bezan Morris, and he's with Raymond James. But more importantly, he's also a dad. So
Yes.
I feel like he's an expert in the wealth management area. We're going to talk a little bit about investing today, more things about him. He's also a Marine, and he went to the Naval Academy. So Bezan, welcome. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Thanks for having me, Jonathan. So I grew up in New Jersey. I was the youngest of three brothers. My oldest brother was born in India before my parents immigrated here, and then my middle brother and I were natural born citizens. So, my older brother was the anchor baby. I was the added bonus. But yeah, grew up in New Jersey, went to the Naval Academy, decided to take the Marine Corps option because I wasn't enough of a glutton for punishment after going to school for 4 years. I had to go in the Marines and served as an artillery officer for 6 years. So I had a couple deployments under my belt and then made the decision to get out back in 2003. My wife and I decided we were going to plant the flag in Arizona. So we ended up in Phoenix for the next 8 years and worked in the construction industry for a little while, and then had the opportunity to join on the fulfillment arm of a little startup company. Not sure if you heard of them, Amazon.
No, never heard of them.
Yeah, tiny little tech startup company. Worked in their warehouses for about the next 7 peak seasons. Eventually went over to Chewy.com and was ended up as the general manager for their fulfillment center down here in Grand Prairie. So moved to Texas back in 2013, been in Fort Worth ever since, and married 19 years, have 2 awesome kids. My daughter Ellie is 13, going on 14.
Going on 30, right?
Oh, yeah, if she makes it that long. There are days where we debate, like, you may not make it, child. And then the little guy, my son Bradley, is 9. So he is just starting to smell badly. So that he's growing up.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That's like,
I know way too much about that smell. Growing up with 2 brothers myself, and of course we were growing up together, so we were stinky. But
that's right.
I see that in my son as well. So tell me more about the whole Naval Academy, on how you applied for it, what the process is like, and any advice you would give to your kids or anyone else out there looking to apply.
So I was lucky in the sense my older brother decided to go there. So when he started looking at the school, his junior year, I was in the 7th grade. So we went down and kind of saw the campus and walked around, and
it's a beautiful campus.
Beautiful campus.
Yeah. If people out there, if you've never visited Annapolis, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
go. Maybe you'll talk your kid into applying.
That's right. But I just kind of fell in love, and so that's where I wanted to go. That's what I wanted to do. And they had some displays about Marines coming from the academy and what that was, and it to my young 7th grade heart, right? That was it. That's what I wanted. So that was always the goal. Going through high school, I never applied anywhere else. I had no safety school. Like that was it.
That's got to be tough. You're like, don't get in.
Even my parents were like, really? Nowhere? Like, we live 10 minutes from the Rutgers campus, and they're like, you want to apply to Rutgers? Like, not worried about it. Like, we're going to roll with
I
this.
like the confidence.
That's right. It worked out. So I think the biggest difference with that school versus any other university is just you have that congressional appointment piece to it. So you've got to be, academically qualified. You have to physically qualify. So, there's fitness tests. You have to go through medical exams, all of that piece. And then you have to get that congressional nomination. So whether it's a senator or a congressman, some people, I wasn't good enough to get like a vice presidential nomination or anything. But I had to go to the senator's office. I remember sitting in a kind of a boardroom setting with about 6 gentlemen. They were all former grads, and they just kind of pepper you with questions and a lot of the things you would imagine. Why do you want to go there? But, tell me about how you define integrity. If you saw someone doing this, what would you do? And kind of some of those leadership questions. And as a high school senior,
you're asking for help.
Yeah,
can I phone a friend?
Yeah, like, I haven't learned this. That's why I want to go. But Yeah, it worked out, and spent the next 4 years there, and then, like I said, when you go through that process, you have the opportunity to kind of see everything that the Navy and the Marine Corps have to offer, and your summers are spent training in some of those different environments. So I've been on a submarine, and after spending 2 days on a sub, I absolutely have no desire to ever go back on a
Well,
submarine.
you already talked about smelly boys and smelly
Oh,
men.
man.
I can only imagine the smells on a submarine.
Yeah. Really cool experience, but I do not want to be underwater that long. That's a little freaky.
Well, yeah, you can't go out and get a tan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, the Marine Corps just kind of spoke to me, and that's where I wanted to go. And I had a chance to meet a couple other artillery officers in my time there. So again, like going to TBS, like I knew that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be an artillery guy, so shooting really big guns. I mean, it's a 9-year-old boy's dream job, right? Run around the woods,
Yeah, shoot a big
and
gun,
shoot
blow
really
some
big
stuff
guns,
up.
and blow stuff up. Like heck yeah, I'm gonna go do that. So yeah, that was it. That was really just kind of being exposed to it. And so both my older brothers are career naval officers.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, seeing them kind of go through their experience. My oldest brother, he's 10 years older than me. So he got commissioned in 1988, right after Top Gun got released. So it's kind of funny.
So that was his recruitment video.
Exactly. Yeah, everybody wanted to be a Navy pilot. He spent 30 years in the surface community, so he drove ships for that time. And
so he was a surface warfare officer.
He was, yeah. Okay. And then my middle brother, the one I talked about who had started looking at the school, he actually went as well into the surface community. So just kind of seeing them and like the experiences that they had, the places they got to go, the type of leaders that they were becoming, it's like that was really, I don't think I would have looked at it otherwise if it wasn't for that. So, I get asked that a lot, like, oh, will you let your kids go do it? Because I did. I went to combat. I was in OIF. I was there in 2003 when we invaded Iraq, and went back in 2004 on a job and was doing stuff in the Persian Gulf. Like, yes, they were dangerous pieces to it, and you understand it. Looking back on it now, like you realize like there were a lot of things I was really lucky around. And would I allow my kids to go do it? Absolutely, right? Because having that type of exposure was awesome. And I think a lot of people don't even, they kind of poo-poo the military as a whole because it's like, oh, it's too dangerous, or not my kid, or somebody else can go do that. Like, I want my kids to look at it. I want them to explore that option. And if it speaks to you like it did to me, and having that sense of service, go for it. Absolutely, I would love it. Although I tell my children, I joke with my children, my wife gets mad at me because my wife is Air Force. But I'll tell my kids, like, you can join any service as long as it's not the Army. So as long as you don't join the Army, I'm good.
You think back at what your parents have taught you, and one thing that my mom taught me was how to cook. And it's one thing that I love to do now, and I do with my son. And there's been plenty of people out there, especially women, that were like, "Oh, you cook? That's impressive." I was like, "Well, look at me. I'm a growing boy. I like to eat. So if I don't cook, I don't eat. It's a waste of money going out all the time. And it gets very expensive."
Yeah.
So learning how to cook from my mom and learning just the work ethic from my dad really taught me a lot. And it sounds like you grew up in the same kind of environment, learning from both of your parents.
I did. There were definitely a lot of lessons from both of them, and some of them were, I hate to say it's like what not to do, but it was also like, okay, let this be a warning to myself, right? As I look in the mirror and as I get older. So, my father passed away in 2020, actually right as we went into the pandemic. So there's a whole story with that, but he had heart disease, and he had smoked for decades. He had a quadruple bypass when I was 10. So, I mean, years ago, I had always had heart problems and back problems. And
so you could say he neglected his health a little bit.
He prioritized other things than his health. Okay. Yes. Yeah. I'll put it like that. I don't fault him for it. It's just, it wasn't his nature. He wasn't someone who took eating. I shouldn't say that. He took eating seriously.
He didn't take healthy eating.
He didn't take healthy eating seriously. Yeah. He enjoyed his food. He liked the sweets, and I couldn't tell you ever seeing him go for a run or work out or anything like that. And I think it just wore on him over time. So it's like, yes, Dad, you worked really hard. You did all these things. You gave us a great life, right? I grew up in a upper middle class neighborhood. I went to a good school. I had all those opportunities. But it'd be really nice now to have my dad with me, to be seeing my kids play baseball, doing those things. Like I would have taken that over, those opportunities, and maybe if those choices were a little different. Mom was really the driving factor, like she was the one where we grew up in New Jersey. Dad worked in the city. So you can imagine commuting into New York City every day for 20 some odd years,
That's a rough life.
Oh yeah. He was gone before I was up, home after I was in bed most nights. But Mom was like the driving force. She was the one who like kept us on task, got us to things, made sure that we were doing what we needed to do. So, as I look back on that, it's like, wow, like I was really blessed and lucky that way. Yeah, she was hard. She was strict, right? She was tough on us. I was also the third one, right? Like, there wasn't anything I was doing that she hadn't seen at least twice before, right?
Which is funny because usually the youngest gets away with all the stuff. If you were no longer with us today, what would you want your kids to know?
I want them to know integrity, right? Do what's right when nobody's watching, right? Don't ever sacrifice that for yourself. I want them to, if they're sorry, say you're sorry and mean it. Or be sincere about it. Hey, if you mess something up, if there's something in your life that you took responsibility for that you screwed up, like go accept that and say you're sorry and mean it to that person. And don't be afraid to say I love you. Pick up the phone. Again, losing 2 parents in the last 2 years, right? Like this was my first Mother's Day without my mom.
I'm sure it was hard. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, you had that moment. It's like, man, I just like, there were so many times that she was a royal pain in my butt, but I'd still love to pick up the phone and at least wish her a happy Mother's Day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, don't take those moments for granted. So I think like, that would be the things like if my kids, if I was no longer on this earth, I'd want them to know, that's how I look at it and say like, you learned something good. You're a good human being if you can do those things.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. Great way to end the podcast. And, thank you again, Bezan, for joining us. And, everyone tune in every other week. We'll have a new episode, new Rad Dad talking about, how they grew up, how they're raising their kids in this crazy time. So have a great day and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining Rad Dad Podcast, everyone. Please like and subscribe and we'll see you on the next episode.